Good morning, everybody. For my first video of actually getting into some text, I just want to briefly go over a topic that kind of gets talked about a lot, especially when people are in scenarios or situations where they're on the verge of losing a loved one or what have you. Or maybe they have just recently lost a loved one. Oftentimes people talk about the topic of deathbed conversions, and I just want to try to encourage my brothers to pay closer attention to the text that they point to in trying to present a better expression or a more biblical outlook on that topic. And the passage that commonly gets pointed out to on that topic is the thief on the cross. And I just want to point out some inconsistencies about how that gets expressed or presented by people. So I'm going to read through the text real briefly and then kind of point out some things and some inconsistencies of how people commonly express themselves on that topic. So Luke 23:39 through 43, it says this: Then one of the criminals who were hanged blasphemed him, saying, "If you are the Christ, save yourself and us." But the other, answering, rebuked him, saying, "Do you not even fear God, seeing you are under the same condemnation? And we indeed justly, for we receive the due reward of our deeds, but this man has done nothing wrong." Then he said to Jesus, "Lord, remember me when you come into your kingdom." And Jesus said to him, "As surely I say to you, today you will be with me in paradise." One of the things that I want to really point out is when people talk about the issue of deathbed conversions, they often express themselves in a sense of saying that a person can somehow privately accept Jesus Christ in the privacy of their heart and have absolutely no testimony to that. Before the people that are around them. Let's say the scenario of somebody laying in their deathbed and having family members by their side, and people try to bring comfort to others by saying things such as, "We don't know what happened within their heart in their last moments," and oftentimes it gets pointed to this passage, speaking of the thief on the cross, or these passages, to try to support that position. But one of the inconsistencies that I want to point out is there is several things that we learn about the thief on the cross from these passages. And for one, it is more consistent with what Jesus was preaching all along about people testifying before others. You know, one of the verses that come to mind was when Jesus was talking about, "If you profess me before this sinful generation and are not ashamed of him, that he will not be ashamed of you when he comes, or of that man when he comes in the glory of his Father and the holy angels." So with that in mind, I think that it's really important that we start looking at the inconsistencies and honing in on how we go about expressing things and helping other people to view a more biblical outlook of what a deathbed conversion should look like. Of course, there's always exceptions to the rule, which would be maybe the person cannot speak or something of that sort. Of course, in those kind of scenarios, we may not know what is happening within that person. But if the person is fully capable of speaking as they lay on their deathbed, I think that it is more consistent for us to realize what is happening here on in the instance of the thief on the cross. Which, the things that I wanted to point out is that the thief on the cross expressed himself very publicly. There was no privacy of his heart situation or scenario that people often try to draw a parallel to these passages and the scenarios that they may be dealing with. For one, we see that one of the criminals that were hanged next to Jesus, he was blaspheming. And the criminal that came to know the Lord, he had a public profession of not only rebuking the other criminal, but he had a public confession that he was getting the just reward for his deeds, being condemned as a criminal. And on top of all of that, he had a public profession of Christ as Lord. He is the one that spoke the words to Jesus, saying, "Lord, remember me when you enter your kingdom," or when you come into your kingdom. So to try to use this verse or these verses as a parallel to a person supposedly having some kind of deathbed conversion, I think is being inconsistent with what the text actually exposes or sheds light on the topic. So with that being said, I would just encourage my brothers to realize that when they're dealing with a deathbed conversion scenario or a situation where a person is lying on their deathbed, I think that it is more biblically sound for us to be able to apply all of the principles that Jesus taught throughout the scriptures, throughout the Gospels, about how to discern the heart of man, even in those situations, which would be if a person was fully capable of speaking, we would see this type of profession. We would see the contrite heart, one of humility, being broken before their Creator, acknowledging that they've really messed up in life. And above all of that, we would see, at least with the audience that they have around them at that point in time, an expression of professing Christ as Lord. And I think that would be a more consistent scenario of pointing people to the thief on the cross for a deathbed conversion, is that somewhere to the person's capability of being able to publicly profess Christ as Lord, that indeed would come to light. I think that's taking more of a biblical, consistent approach of trying to share with people what should be happening when a person is having a genuine conversion, which would include whether it was a deathbed scenario or any other conversion scenario that there possibly could be. It's just really important that we start following more closely what the Bible actually says, instead of painting these false scenarios, or pretty much trying to compare apples with oranges. We we set up scenarios, or we find ourselves in scenarios and we try to paint a parallel to the text, which is something really good, but I think that we need to go about doing it a lot more consistently, which is we don't try to profess that our scenario somehow fits a text that it doesn't. So with that in mind, I would just challenge my brothers that when we talk about things of conversion, that we are looking more closely at the text that we're using to support our position. Because all in all, no matter what positions we hold, God has spoken, and as the Apostle Paul wrote, let man be a liar and God be true. Something to that since that's not a word for word, but it's a paraphrase of basically what he was saying. In other words, if our position is off from what the biblical text paints in principle, or paints a clear picture of, it's our position that needs to change, and not us bleeding our experience or our position into the text. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and upload this video, and if any of you guys have questions or concerns about what I'm sharing, please make it known. Share with me. I'm all about iron sharpening iron. Brothers, step forward and let me hear what you got on your heart, and what insights and perspectives that God has taught you and shared with you. And please subscribe so that you'll be informed when I upload more videos. I'm gonna probably get into a bit more videos, getting more depth into actually going through text, and sometimes I'll just post a video that is kind of just excuse me, dipping into a perspective or insight or on a specific topic or what have you, just so everyone is not misled by me expressing about going deeper in the scriptures. Some of the things that I talk about may not be like getting into the whole manuscripts of things, or the Greek text or what have you. My whole perspective of what it means to go deeper is not just pointing people to original languages, but also bringing about applicable practicalities of how to actually walk in the faith, and really receive deeper understanding that is coming about in a practical manner with what we're reading in the text. So a lot of that is doing away with just breezing over teachings that we heard from such and such teachers, but actually just being honest with the text and seeing what it is presenting before us as we go through it. And by all means, I'm open to hearing out my brother's perspectives, so feel free to contact me. We'll see you next time. God bless.